Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, so I'd like to call the November 26, 2025 Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee meeting to order. I'd like to start off by acknowledging we're conducting this meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Shuswap and Huipachesset First Nations, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. We also have directors calling in from other territories, and I'd like to also acknowledge those nations and express our gratitude and our respect. So notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. So we'll start by doing introductions. My name is Debbie Haggard. I am the chair of the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee. And we'll go around this way. Please go ahead, Cynthia.
Good morning, Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services.
I'm Randy LaCourcier. I'm the alternate director for Sprout Lake.
John Jack, Director for Hawaii First Nations.
Good morning, Susan Roth, Director for Beaver Creek.
Good morning, I'm Mike Sparrow, representing Pickle at Cherry Creek.
Good morning, I'm Daniel Sayan. I'm the CAO for the ACRD.
So now we'll go online, and I'll just go in order that I see you. Director Beckett, please introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Bob Beckett, representing Bamfield Area A.
Thank you, Director Boyko.
Fred Boyko, electoral area of Beaufort. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Coots.
Good morning, everyone. From Ryan Coots here for the Hutchins Government. Click on to.
Thank you, Director Patola.
Hello, Todd Patola, alternate director for the city.
Thank you. And we'll go to staff. Jenny, are you able to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Jenny Brunn, General Manager of Community Services.
Thank you, Terry. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Terry Fong, Chief Financial Officer.
I don't think I've missed anyone. Great, thank you. We do have an agenda in front of us. Is there any late items from directors? See, Director Boyko? Oh, you're just waving? Okay, thank you. Any late items from the corporate officer?
No additions.
Thank you. Can I motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Director Roth, seconded by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Any declarations or conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll go on to the minutes of the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Services Committee meeting held on June 19th, 2025. Is any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I motion that the minutes of the Alberni Valley and Bamfield Committee meeting held on June 19th, 2025 be adopted? Moved by Director Roth, seconded by Director Jack. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We do have a delegation here today. We have the Port Alberni Clayoquot Transit Future Services Plan. We have Seth Wright, Senior Government Relations Manager, and Jacob Burnley, Transit Planner for BC Transit, requesting consideration of final adoption and endorsement of transit plan for the Alberni Valley and City of Port Alberni. Good morning, welcome. Nice to have you here today. You're always fun to have come to our meetings. You always come with lots of information. So please start your presentation.
I think you're muted, Seth. Still can't hear you.
You may need to select your headset as your microphone.
Perhaps you can hear me now. Yeah, there we go.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I just wanted to say thank you so much to the chair and to the committee for the opportunity to speak today. We were last in front of you about 6 months ago. there was direction at that time to present to the accessibility committee. Since then, we've been to the accessibility committee. Jacob's put some final touches on the plan, and we're excited to be able to present to you. We did also present to the City Council of Port Alberni. This is a joint city and ACRD plan on Monday afternoon. They approved endorsement of this. I believe after your consideration today, this would be going to your board for final approval. If your board does provide that approval, we would be putting it on the website and then be working with the plan as the blueprint for transit service expansion in the coming years between at your direction and discretion, along with staff from yourselves and the city council. Thanks so much. With that, I'll hand it over to Jacob to walk you through the plan.
Hi all, thanks for the opportunity to present today. My name is Jacob Burnley, Transit Planner at BC Transit, and nice to see so many familiar faces. Today, going to provide a background on our updates to the Port Alberni Transit Future Service Plan, and to give you a bit of background on where we've gone in terms of the development of the plan and some of the final priorities that we've established. So I will begin here. Just a bit of background. We'll talk a bit about the system context. I think you're all aware of the engagement process that we've conducted thus far and some of those common feedback themes that we have heard. So I'll be brief on those, but I will look in depth and share some information on some of those both conventional and custom transit service priorities and provide some guidance on the next steps around the plan's deliverables. And I believe my screen is now frozen. Can you see my screen? Okay, we should be good. Just a bit of background, obviously, we've spoken about this before, but there really hasn't been a lot of concrete transit planning work since about 2012 on the system. And at that point, the system was restructured. You're aware of how the system operates with the pulse scheduling system, where routes kind of all depart and exchange at the same time and arrive back at the same time. So really the plan that we have here is to provide some guidance around interim improvement opportunities and to ensure that transit's work and transit's place in the community is still very much rooted in alignment with local planning and development strategies, and to really make sure that we're addressing some of the gaps and reflecting the needs of the users, as well as our transit operators. So just a bit of background here. I'll speak a bit more about background on the system, but just to give you a sense of where we're at, obviously there's the 3 a.m. and p.m. routes in the system, and then that consolidated off-peak route. We've spoken about this at length before, but our services provide quite adequate coverage around the local area in accessing a number of key destinations and resources, educational facilities, recreational facilities, shopping and amenities, the West Coast General Hospital, as well as North Island College. So we also did obviously look at demographics in the region and how the community has changed over the last decade. Obviously, there's a low density and dispersed population in some of the outlying areas and some of the electoral areas outside of the city of Port Alberni, which does make serving transit in an efficient manner a challenge. But when we do look at the census data and in conversation with city staff that we had, there are a number of defined key corridors within the city that we obviously want to be focusing investment on when it comes to things like future density and growth and development via local planning initiatives. So looking at corridors such as Argyle, Redford, 10th Avenue, and obviously the Uptown Core as well. So from the
Jacob, just to let you know, your slides are still not moving, still frozen on the cover page.
Oh, I think you might be sharing the wrong screen, perhaps.
Okay, just one moment. My apologies. I will fix this right here.
There we go. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, my apologies, folks. I will continue here. So yeah, as you can see from the map on screen at a high level, the existing routes do provide good coverage in regards to areas of higher population density with higher concentrations of seniors and low-income residents. And we did also work with city staff to ensure that our planning priorities offered alignment with the city's transportation master plan. Thinking about continuing investment in those core essential areas, but also looking at our coverage areas and off-peak times as well. So system performance, as you can see, we have some updated information. The last time we presented to you, we had presented 2023, 2024 data. As you can see, we now have 2024, 2025 data, and our system ridership has continued to increase post-pandemic. You'll also notice here that our scheduled service hours have remained relatively stable through the pandemic. In terms of system and route performance, obviously the Route 2 Pacific Rim, we spoke about this before, but it is our highest ridership route, offering access to a number of key commercial amenities and educational facilities in the region. This route sees approximately 24 boardings per in-service hour, which is quite strong. I will note the Route 3 and the 4, which offer coverage service during off-peak times and via River Road, do see quite substantially lower ridership, but they are serving areas of lower density, so that is to be expected. And I will mention that there is some particular information related to the Route 4 in specific in this plan for improvement. And I will note that, and I think I mentioned this prior, but we are starting to see improved technology on board our buses, and we're starting to get a better sense of getting that reliable service usage data. So things like understanding ridership by trip, even at bus stop levels. And so when we look at implementing changes from this plan going forward, we will be able to better monitor the performance of these changes and be a bit more nimble with recommendations for how we can make adjustments. So obviously public engagement, we spoke about this before, but we did offer a public survey. We received a number of unique comments from community members, both transit users and non-users. We participated in an open house and workshop sessions, and recently did meet with the ACRD's Accessibility Committee and had some really fruitful discussions there. Obviously, we also engaged with our local First Nations partners and received some really important information about lived experience of users in their experience in navigating the transit system. And lastly, obviously, we spoke with our transit operators to get a better sense of the lived on-the-ground experience in serving the system on a daily basis. So we did speak about this before. We did see a broad swath of respondents in terms of both where respondents were coming from, but also in how often they were using the transit system. And I will mention that we did see notable parallels between the feedback that we received from both our transit users, some of our non-users as well, and also our operators. So there were a number of common themes that I'll speak to and sort of where our top priorities are in terms of going forward with this plan. So it was noted that the service from a user perspective is quite reliable, and that's largely down to the fact that the system is designed in a pulse scheduling system where, like I said, all those routes depart and arrive at the same time from the central Redford Exchange. We did see strong satisfaction in terms of using the system amongst regular users, but there were a number of notable gaps, particularly during those off-peak times. So when it's not late nights, early mornings, things like that, there are gaps in the system that we do need to address. And then also, obviously, there are perceptions of safety. There are some safety concerns, and there was somewhat of a strong disconnect between the users on board and their perceptions of safety and non-users. And so something that BC Transit is obviously working on. We have our corporate investigations team, and we have a security protocol in place to ensure that any and all incidents that take place on board buses and at stops are directly reviewed and monitored. When it came to future service across the board, it was frequency and span. So how often are the buses traveling, and how early to how late are they running? That was the common theme that we heard and the consistent desire. There was also really strong support for further study of an interregional connection between Port Alberni and the regional district of Nanaimo, likely via Qualicum Beach and the Route 9 and the RDN. I'll speak a bit more to this in the presentation, but just making note of that. So obviously we did speak about Sprout Lake, I believe last time. We did ask questions specifically about Sprout Lake service. But the service proposal that we did put forth did receive some strong to mixed support from ridership and Port Alberni residents and opposition from Sprout Lake residents. And really there were concerns around this being primarily a recreational service for city residents, but being cost shared locally via the Sprout Lake electoral area. So based on the feedback that we received, some of the use considerations, and frankly also the number of service hours that we would need to adequately serve the area, Sprout Lake is not being included as part of this plan. However, it is something that BC Transit would be willing to study upon recommendation from the regional district going forward. So out of all the feedback collected, there were a number of key priorities that we've identified. I'm just going to breeze through these following 2 slides and then speak to all of these individually. So beginning with evening service. And the first proposal that we heard was for additional evening service on the Route 4, which is that consolidated route. It kind of combines all 3 of the daytime routes in Port Alberni. And as mentioned before, we noted strong support for this. The span of service was noted in public engagement as being insufficient, and this would be particularly valuable for those who are accessing extracurricular activities, be it extracurricular activities after work, after school, shopping as well, and then obviously those working in the service industry that may not work those traditional 9-to-5 jobs. This would allow for additional service to bridge those gaps. So we're proposing here the approximately 1,300 hours. I will mention all the hour totals in here are subject to minor adjustments, and we're not asking for financial commitment in any way today. This is a conceptual plan. We can scale these requests up and down on an annual basis based on the comfort of our local government partners. But just to make note that this would equate to service on the Route 4 to approximately 11 p.m.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but you've reached the 10-minute mark, so I'm going to have to get a motion from the directors. Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Jack, to allow you to go beyond the 10-minute mark. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for the interruption. Please go ahead and take your time. We're in no rush this morning.
No worries. Thank you very much. I will continue with just some brief notes here, and we'll wrap up. But Route 2, I'll mention here, obviously our highest ridership route, and adding some service here to support likely future growth that we are monitoring from our end, about 1,000 hours as well. Service to the Sechot First Nation. This was something that came up repeatedly in public engagement. And while service further west of Sprout Lake did note mixed public reception in consultation with the First Nation and in review of some of the previous planning work, there has been consistent interest and support for the establishment of this service. We have two variant options here and would require some additional feasibility work and operational assessments. However, as part of this plan, we would like to sort of kickstart those discussions with our operational teams and with our local government partners as part of this plan. We have interregional service on slated here as well. Obviously, this would require some significant operational review and some significant feasibility studies. This would also require us to consider modification of the governance and funding structure of the transit system to ensure that there is cross collaboration between the City of Port Alberni, the ACRD, and the Regional District of Nanaimo. This essentially is proposing base level service. Again, we can scale this up and down. And I'm happy to answer any questions on sort of what these hours would specifically equate to. But this is sort of just a high level review and a high level recommendation to sort of kickstart those discussions to better understand what the scope and scale of an interregional service could be. This was something that was really strongly supported, real interest in year-round service to access those services and amenities not available in the Alberni Valley. Won't speak to this one too in depth, but obviously as we continue to see population growth and traffic on key corridors grow, transit obviously will need additional scheduled time just to travel the routes they currently do. So these changes just require more resources to maintain the same level of service. And as just in short, we're just recommending a small number of hours annually to support transit's receptiveness to community growth. We did look at Rainbow Gardens. This was a recommendation from this group here, and in conversation with the ACRD's Accessibility Committee, we did review a number of service options to Rainbow Gardens. We did note, however, that the Falls and Pacific Rim stop, which is the stop closest to the Sechot First Nation currently, is actually the highest ridership stop north of Johnson in the Alberni Valley. And so with consideration to that and consideration to some of the spatial concerns that our fleet vehicles would be subject to in and around the Rainbow Gardens location, we are recommending that routing on the Route 3 is maintained as is, and custom transit service via Handy Dart would be preferable due to its capabilities around door-to-door access. I will mention as well that we did review a number of service options through the West Point neighborhood. However, similarly, additional service hours would be required, and some of the spatial considerations were of concern. So going to custom transit service priorities, very high level, but I will mention that we did get some hours and some specific recommendations directly from our custom transit team at BC Transit. We noted obviously peak travel periods and peak travel capacity. So adding additional hours to ensure that we are reducing reliance on the taxi supplement program and supporting quicker pickup times and more flexibility during peak hours, expanding the weekend service to better match that of conventional transit, and expanding service on stat holidays on the Handy Dart is obviously of key importance as well. I won't speak to this too in depth, but BC Transit is looking at improving the custom transit experience via an online portal for booking, better data collection for our operators, and to look at opportunities to introduce electronic fare payment potentially, and to allow for better tracking of key metrics to guide the booking process as well via custom transit. Obviously, infrastructure priorities, we are looking at the bus shelter program, and the city has been a strong supporter of this program and ensuring better transit amenity coverage and amenity improvements. As I said, we have ridership data by a stop now, and so we're able to better prioritize and provide recommendation for stop improvements, and then obviously operations and maintenance. And if we are looking at some of these larger items like interregional service, like additional service on the Route 2, obviously a larger operations and maintenance facility will be needed in the coming years to support growth and accommodate those additional fleet vehicles. So as I mentioned before, the plan before you today doesn't require any immediate sort of commitments or cost share considerations. We are noting these service hours and these proposals at a high level from a conceptual standpoint, so we can begin work on some of these items like interregional service, like looking at opportunities for expanding the Route 4 during the evening period. Once this plan is adopted, the priorities from the plan would then be reviewed on an annual basis through our transit improvement process cycle for provincial expansion application funding. And this obviously would be reviewed by our local government partners, yourselves, as well as our transit scheduling team, our government relations team, and our operations team as well. So at this time, I would like to request that we seek resolution that the regional district endorse the plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. That concludes my presentation, but Seth and I are here to answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Questions from the committee members? Director Sparrow? Can I just ask you to stop sharing so I can see the people calling in online? Thank you so much.
Thank you. On Route 3, you've changed the route up to go in front of the pulp mill as opposed to going up on 10th Avenue as an option. Why would you do that? There's no stopping in front of the mill as you're going away from residential areas. What was the thought process behind that?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, so we did review the opportunity to route the Route 3 via Stamp Avenue, and we did look at opportunities there. However, that would eliminate the one-seat ride connection between a number of rec facilities, a number of recreational facilities and the secondary school to River Road via Route 3. And we did note that in some of the engagement that we had prior, that the connection to the recreational facilities and educational facilities were of priority. Perhaps Seth can speak more to that historic discussion, but I do have some information in the full plan and the full plan document, which I believe we can share. If it hasn't been shared already, we can share. Speaks to that discussion on the Route 3 versus Stamp Avenue versus 10.
Did you have any comments on that, Seth?
I guess I think perhaps that answered it. If there's further follow-up on historical conversations we've had, I can try to answer, but.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Also on Handy Dart, right now we do it by area by land improvements. Do you have a mileage counter on that so we know exactly how many miles per electoral area is being transferred so we know exactly what's happening? Was that consideration at all?
I'll take that question and say that we do not track the miles traveled of Handy Dart service within each electoral area. That's not something that our current dispatch infrastructure has capacity to track. We are introducing new dispatch software in the new year that I think we've talked about already, that we're very excited about. That, as many things, has been subject to some delays. But I think that new dispatch software will give us greater visibility and greater data dashboards to share with your committee on the overall amount of service being dispatched to each electoral area. So we're looking forward to that. Currently, we have ridership metrics, which is call outs by electoral area. So I am happy to share that to a future committee meeting.
Please go ahead, Jacob.
Thank you. Just to make comment just back to the previous question regarding Stamp Avenue, page 19 in the full plan has a breakdown of our review and assessment of that alternate service option. So thank you.
Dr. Jack, did you raise your hand? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I think the interregional transit opportunity bears more attention, and I think that's a conversation with the city as much as it is with the regional district, just given it's more in their wheelhouse at the moment, because we don't do much in regards to transit, unfortunately. So to be something we'd need to involve the city in those conversations. But I think that any connection to the wider network on the east coast of Vancouver Island would allow for vulnerable citizens to get to the hospital or other services that are pretty vital. And I think that's especially poignant given that the 3 beds that exist in West Coast General are now temporarily, hopefully, closed. Yeah, thanks.
I can say the city has been supporting this since I've been on council for the last 7 years, so I think it's going to be very timely. So thank you for bringing that up. Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So my question is always apportionment. So the Beaufort people are traditionally very low users of transit because we don't have services and we're dependent on our own methods of transportation getting out in town and wherever else we're going. So with regard to Director Sparrow's comments about Handy Dart and usage, I think that'd be good to share the usage. I know Beaufort has 0 users in that, but we do contribute to it. The Beaufort people are not really interested in helping contribute to the interregional area. But my question is more about if we're going to get transit service to the Tishat First Nation that's primarily just for Tishat, how would the apportionment work? Because they're not members of this board, and how would we actually fund that proportionally to the users that are using it? Thank you.
I can take that question through the chair.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. We've been working with your staff and have established a community transit partnership agreement for extending Handy Dart service out to the Tishat First Nation. And we could take a similar approach, which is effectively that we establish through looking at our costs with the appropriate cost sharing measure and establish an agreement that provides a cost recovery that can be revisited annually. So we'd look to recover the cost and have a cost sharing agreement effectively in place to be able to support that service with the Tishat.
So thank you. And through the chair, just a quick follow-up. So just to simplify that, so the users of that service will be the ones that are paying for it. Is that what the cost sharing services says right now? Is that how it's worded? Because I don't think we have access to that.
Yeah, cost sharing services can be established in a few different ways, and I think staff would look to your board to determine perhaps the general structure of what that cost sharing arrangement should be. In some communities, I would say that there's a strong commitment to reconciliation, and sometimes that means providing it at a reduced cost, and sometimes there's a commitment to a full cost recovery. And so that's a conversation that really lives between your staff and the First Nation involved. And I would say BC Transit just provides the agreement and the template to carry out that cost recovery agreement, and we can provide costs through our finance team on what the cost of running the service would be. And then ultimately it's up to staff to discuss with the nation what that cost recovery arrangement would look like to provide that service.
Terry,
Perfect.
please go ahead.
Thank you. So for custom transit, we did actually develop it, and the board agreed to an agreement with Sashot for the custom transit aspect of it. I believe in the report we'd actually presented a few options, but what we landed on and agreed with was an allocation based on population. So based on the census numbers that are out there right now, Sashot's going to pay about 2.3% of the total custom transit bill, which is about $5,500 at this point. Every time the census is updated, those numbers will be updated. There was no additional cost to the custom transit overall service, so our agreement with BC Transit did not change to add Sashot into that. So that money is just being deducted from what is getting then apportioned amongst the other members. And then if something goes from a conventional standpoint, the ACRD does not run the conventional system. So that would be, at this time anyways, so that would be an agreement with the city and Sashot and BC Transit to go that way.
Thank you, Terry.
Dr. Jack?
Yeah, I had a question in regards to do you track anything in regards to the demographics, the aging demographics of different parts of the community? I do know that there's more and more conversations around the types of policies we may need to adopt in relation to aging in place. A lot of people are refusing to give up their homes for a lot of reasons. Some of it is just the fact that it's hard to get into a retirement home. But that being said, there will be folks who won't be able to rely on driving in the same way. And so when I think of the oldest demographics on the island, it's Parksville, Qualicum, the Noose. What does it look like on this side of the island? And what does it look like for communities that will have a higher proportion of people aging in place? Not everyone is moving to a more dense neighborhood or closer to, say, the hospitals or medical clinics. How are we going to handle that beyond Handy Dart? Because I think that's something that we may need to look at. And just looking at the demographics involved, I think it's not just a question of young people using transit. On the other side of the island, it does seem like there's an increasing number of seniors who do, especially those who may not be able to drive anymore. So I don't know that that's necessarily an immediate problem, but I think it would be different across different types of communities, right? But I just don't know what that is. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have a response, either Seth or Jacob, for long-term planning? Is this something that you're tracking?
I can speak very briefly to this, and then maybe Seth can provide some supplemental comments. So we do obviously track through fare programs. We track ridership by sort of pass type. And so we do monitor that. Of course, that only extends to our existing transit user base. But our data analytics team is looking at census tract data as well on a regular basis. And so we are able to regularly monitor that. One thing I will mention, obviously, and we spoke about this, was capacity concerns with Handy Dart, right? And the peak capacity, and that's kind of why that's one of the recommendations for custom transit is because the system can be constrained as the ridership base for Handy Dart grows. So obviously, Handy Dart service doesn't work for everybody, and their sort of guidelines and policies are fairly strict in terms of who is eligible and who is not. So yeah, in terms of bridging the gap to conventional transit, our data analytics team does have a lot of that, and our fare programs team does have a lot of that data. But I wouldn't be able to speak to it beyond the transit user base. Perhaps Seth might have more information.
You're muted, Seth.
Thank you so much. I'm very bad with this mute button today. I apologize. I would say as part of the initial analysis of the Port Alberni transit system before Jacob took the reins, there was a significant look at sort of what the demographics across the region are. The two demographic maps that we tend to rely upon the most at BC Transit and looking at sort of transit service demand tend to that really respect demographics are census tract seniors and youth across census tract. So that provides sort of a neighborhood scale mapping, not typically aligning with electoral area, but providing pretty good granularity of information. And then also low income cutoff. So seeing where people that live below the poverty line live across a region. And those are used to inform sort of the initial conversations and evaluation of does the transit service line up in terms of routing, I don't think we've applied that lens to custom transit service across the broader Alberni Valley, and that's an interesting comment from Director Jack. So that's certainly something we can look at and work with staff on. Are there changes or opportunities to make? We've certainly heard loud and clear repeatedly from this table that there's desire to see support for aging in place, and Handy Dart provides good functionality for that. I think that we all have personal experiences with the desire to age in place, especially when we're set up in our community. The last thing we want to do is move. So the longer we can keep people mobile and to get things that they need to serve them, the better off we are. And that's work we can continue, especially when we have this dispatch dashboard and software. And I will work to bring that information back to the committee in due course.
Thank you, Jacob. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just to supplement that, and Seth had briefly mentioned the custom transit program. I mentioned it briefly in my presentation around better tracking and monitoring and performance metrics for custom transit going forward. And so there is a potential scenario longer term where we can better get a better sense distribution wise of where custom transit bookings are coming from and going, and we can use any sort of expansion opportunities we have with our conventional service to respond to some of those concerns. Are there opportunities for some custom users to use the conventional service, and where are those common trip patterns, those key origin destination patterns? So can we use that custom transit data to inform conventional? That could be an opportunity in the future as well, as an additional source of data. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I think that BC Transit would like to see a recommendation today. And the suggested motion that Cynthia just wrote is that the committee recommend to the board that the Alberni-Clutha Regional District endorse the 2025 Port Alberni Transit Future Service Plan. Would anyone like to make that motion? Moved by Director Jack, second by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much, Seth and Jacob. You always come with lots of really good information. It's very detailed, and I appreciate you taking the time to come to see us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much.
Okay, so next we have reports beyond the scale. Here's what happens to your waste when it goes to the Alberni Valley Sort and Go Center. And I'm assuming Jenny's going to be taking this today. Thank you. Please go ahead, Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so if you remember back in June at the last AVB meeting, we had our annual solid waste report for the landfill come, and we had a bit of questions, both from directors after the annual report, but then also from the public. And so we developed a bit of a communication, and that's what's attached to the report here, just with more details broken down by area. We produced this and put it on the website in late summer. And then we just wanted to add it to the committee meeting and agenda for the director's information. It's some pretty good stuff in there. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But otherwise, it's just a report for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Director Beckett, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's great that you've got it on the website. When I stop into the little Bamfield transfer station, I hear all the rumors about this is just a waste of time sorting this stuff out because it just ends up in the garbage. So we have to continue to educate our communities that there is value in taking the time to do the appropriate recycling. So thank you and your staff for this.
I think those are the kinds of things that Jenny likes to hear. Any other questions or comments on Jenny's report? Seeing none, would anyone like to make the suggested motion? Oh, Director Boyko, you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you. I think it's good to show the residential stuff by electoral area and the loads and that kind of thing. There's a big assumption because most of the time that I go there, my loads are never weighed because I'm always less than 83 kilograms. But I'm just wondering, there is an assumption made that a truck going through with a load of garbage weighs a certain amount and that's average somehow. But I don't see anything about commercial, industrial, hotels, restaurants, that kind of thing. And I know that is by far the largest user of the landfill. So having us, the people that vote on landfill changes, having that data presented to us would be greatly appreciated moving forward, because there's a huge missing component here that we're being asked to say, yep, the report's all good, but I know 61% of the material going landfill is from ICI uses, and there's no data about that here. Thank you.
Really good point. It is a large amount of our waste stream. So in our annual report that we report out every year, we do that larger breakdown with a lot of details. This was specifically to answer more of the detailed questions that people were having about the residential waste and breakdown. We could add more slides to give more information and context for the commercial as well. But we do have the other area on the website, which is commercial. One thing we are going to try to do this year is make the annual report a little bit more digestible. And as we've heard, I love that people want to see the data and that this is valuable information for making decisions and also motivation for continuing to divert. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And it's good to see the trends over time, because some of the information is quite telling about how diversion has increased and loads have gone down. But as some of the things, like we only have 216 loads of organics per year, like that is less than one a day. Like, why do we even do it at the landfill? Because I'm sure the costs of moving that around are way more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Director Sparrow?
Thank you. Looking at this, Cherry Creek's, their construction and demo waste went up, which is fine. But do we break it down by area? Like, we take the wood out and take the chip rock out and separate it that way, or how is this calculated? Just total waste?
Construction and demolition waste would be a load that could have some wood waste in it. We encourage people to separate that out. So clean wood and dirty wood. Dirty wood is stuff that we can't chip and compost. And clean wood waste, which can all come from construction and demo, is something that we can chip and compost or send for hog fuel to the pulp and paper mill. That also includes the drywall and those other materials that we actually do recycle. So it's interesting too. I'll make a comment about construction and demolition waste. 2021 was a really neat year because it was after COVID. And so we saw a ton of demolition and construction and general waste. Like, people were staying at home and cleaning out their garages and doing all sorts of things at home. So you will see that 2021 is kind of a peak year, and that is a bit of an anomaly. But if you average it out, and we'll look at 2025 numbers in a couple months. We'll have the year from 2025 back at you. And usually you see trends over time. We are seeing diversion of municipal solid waste because of some organics. And we, again, see the organics going up and up. And as we promote the program more, we will see that, because we already received the curbside city program, organics at the landfill. So we can then just add in residential streams for drop off. So I hope that answers those questions.
Although it's not part of this report, I know we have the numbers for the off gassing. Are they starting to plateau down with its organics, or are we still having issues with them going too high?
I'm gonna go back and get some more information on the gases for you, because we've got a few things going on with that, and we have to do a calculation. It's all very theoretical, so it is based on that, and I'd have to look at it to see at what point we're starting to trend down, because we still have to account for historical organics being in the landfill. It takes years for them to create gas, and then you eventually see a drop. So I don't have that at my fingertips right now.
Any other questions or comments? Would anyone like to make the motion to receive the report? Moved by Director Sparrow, second by Director Roth. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. No late business. Any questions online, Cynthia?
No questions received in Zoom and none in the email inbox.
Thank you very much. Get a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Jack. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we'll see everyone back here at 1:30 for the board meeting. Thank you, everyone.